LaCour from Hook'emHeadlines.com. Today we got Nash from Nash Talks Texas joining us to talk a little bit about the Rice game last weekend, and then look forward mainly to the Alabama game coming up on Saturday night in Tuscaloosa. Thank you for joining us, Nash. I know that we're big fans of what you do over on your social media pages, your YouTube page. I know just in general, a lot of people in the Texas media space utilize a lot of the clips that you use. You do some interesting graphics, analytics also. And I'm big on the data side and analytics and everything like that. So that's always something that's really interesting to me. But thank you for joining us. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having me on, man. I'm big fans of both y'all's work.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And just to start off, I thank God for three things every day. One, my wife and kids. Two, my health. And three, that Nash makes Texas clips so I don't have to watch 2 hours of the game. I can just watch the plays. So thank you so much, Nash. We really appreciate that.
You're welcome, man. I appreciate all the love that y'all give me.
Some of the things I saw from you, it seems like you were a big fan of how the defensive line played, because let's be honest here, who wasn't on Saturday? They were just menacing against Rice. You gave some love to Jaden Blue. I think, judging by some of the context you put behind the Quinn Ewers clips, that you also think that we shouldn't be panicking at least about the deep ball issues yet, that some of those issues were caused by the supporting cast not holding up their end of the bargain. That might be overstepping on you a little bit there, but I'll turn it over to you. What are kind of some of your thoughts coming out of week one and heading into week two?
I'll start off with the whole Quinn Ewers. You didn't really overstep too much on that. I think I've been very critical of his inability to hit the deep ball. I'm going off top of my head. I think it was 2 for 34 last year and 25 plus air yard passes. So, and the first one was versus Alabama. If you remember that big Worthy play versus Alabama,
yep.
And then right after that, that's when Quinn gets injured and he gets taken out. Well, and then the next one was the last play of the game versus Washington. So it was literally it was almost like a slap in the face, like, hey, screw y'all. Last play, y'all are going to hit one more. But so there has been some issues, but overall, I think I just feel like Quinn Ewers had a better performance than people are making out to be. I mean, I sent some of these DMs to Tarik. He was this close to a 6 touchdown day. And I don't know how anybody could view a 6 touchdown day, 5 through the air and 1 on the ground, as a bad day. And it was so close to that.
I got to agree with a lot of what you're saying here, because for one, and there's one play that I guess I'll get this out of the way first. There's one play that lives in my mind rent free this weekend, and it's the play where he just hit Jatavian Sanders in the logo on the helmet. I think that was more of still some miscommunication going on, but other than that, and then the 6 deep balls, he was pretty much perfect, like you said. I've mentioned this a lot in the YouTube videos we've done since the game on Saturday. The way he's able to use his legs, it's not only a newfound confidence, but it feels like he's seeing the field a little bit better. He's getting a better feel when the pocket's collapsing on him and just tucking and running. I saw a commenter mention something interesting that, he covers a ton of ground because obviously he's got a long stride, and I think he uses that well. But if you watch him try to change directions, it's pretty clunky. And so, that timing and that feel, just to be able to get those 3rd and longs, get those first downs or 2nd and long, whatever that is, move the chains, that's going to be critical. He's got to have a good understanding of when to go before the defense is able to close on him. But I like a lot of what he did. I mean, he was decisive in the short and intermediate passing game. He wasn't overthrowing people as much. I thought it was interesting too. What do y'all make of this? He didn't have a single throwaway against Rice, but he still came under pressure. What was it, 6 or 7 snaps?
They say that, but I'm not. This is where I was really surprised that PFF doesn't count this as a throwaway. Is the spike? They count. He had a spike in there, and that, I mean, to me, I know you're not throwing the ball out of bounds in a way, but that's still the entire purpose of the throwaway stat is to remove throws that have no relevance to accuracy. And when your intention is, I'm going to throw the ball into the ground, he was accurate on the play. Also, I'll give him that.
Yeah, well, yeah. But yeah, they should almost just have a separate category just for spikes. If they're going to get that deep, I mean, with how detailed they are on other play tracking, but it's a fair point. I at this point, I think for Quinn, I think I mentioned it, Tarik, when we were doing the video yesterday. You just got to figure out other ways to get the offense to stretch the field, whether that's attacking the seam and then maybe just building up his confidence from there, or just maybe hitting someone in stride on like a 15 yard post. You're going to have to find other ways to stretch the field because he's seeing the rest of the field better.
I think that using taking deep shots more in the middle of the field would be much better for Quinn because that's kind of where he seems to excel. I can see why Sark would be hesitant to do that because the middle of the field is where you're most prone to turn up the ball over. You know, you do have JT Sanders, you have AD Mitchell, who I think would be really good on post. And of course, Worthy can run in any route known to man, and he can run it well. So
Isaiah Nayor out of the field spot.
Yeah, Nayor too. He was one of the he had a great catch in the fourth quarter.
Just that rocket out of Malik Murphy's arms.
That thing,
out his arm. Yeah.
Well, and then you got another one too. It's like, I mean, I feel like, Malik, Nair went back to the sideline and said, Malik, come on, man. Like, you can go a little bit easier.
Yeah, it like the ball took it with him. Yeah.
I mean, hey, when Nair can't catch your pass, you throwing it a little hard.
Yeah.
Slightly.
As I was saying, I think that there's a ton of other ways that you can scheme up this offense to still make it work. I actually think the elephant in the room coming out of the weekend is the fact that we had to have someone like Jaden Blue. I posted a stat today he was hit at the line 4 times. He wasn't stuffed a single time. That's like a Bijan Robinson sort of stat, or Rashawn Johnson. The fact that we had to have someone have that type of performance just to get 55 rushing yards on 10 carries. The interior offensive line needs to block better, but also the outside blockers, they got to be in better communication, better effort, better at finding their assignments and finishing the blocks.
One thing I noticed watching Nash's clips was DJ Campbell. He just like several plays. It was almost to the point where he just should have just stopped there and just threw up his hand and says, "I don't know what I'm doing." It was just like, yeah. That'll come with time, but he didn't know what he needed to do all the time.
I mean, Nash, was there anything that you took away from kind of cutting up the clips for Jaden Blue or just in general for the ground game?
I mean, specifically when you talk about the interior offensive line, it's just like, I don't want to I always try to be very careful, and when I'm talking about especially like the kids that are playing on the football field, like, because these are they're busting their tail ends, like they're not trying to they're trying to do their best, and also they have family members that watch this stuff too. So, but I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is. They were getting pushed around versus Rice at times. Not the entire time, but I mean, it was enough to cause concern. And if that's happening versus Rice, it's probably going to happen versus Alabama. I mean, that is something that we have to get squared away, because immediately I'm getting flashbacks of the Arkansas game where, I mean, Bijan literally did not have anything. He had, like you said, he had to fight 5 yards just to get back to the line of scrimmage.
I was rewatching a few times in slow motion Jaden Blue's 19-yard run because it was really nice. I believe it was drawn up as an outside zone run play, and there was just no way he was getting outside. One of Rice's defensive linemen completely blew up the play. I think it was actually Hayden Connor getting pulled over or it wasn't a pulling play, but him trying to open up his gap. He got beat, and then Jaden Blue was able to, in the blink of an eye, cut it back inside, make 2 more tacklers miss, and then pick up 19 yards. But that's not going to happen on every play. Also, Alabama is going to be a lot quicker to close those gaps, and their linebackers are going to be a lot quicker in pursuit of the ball carrier. For Campbell, he looks a lot bigger. It looks like when he actually makes contact at the point of attack for his blocking assignments, that power and that leverage is really overwhelming. But you can't do much with it if you're not getting to your blocking assignments effectively.
Yeah, you got to be in the right spot.
If he's not ready to go, I have a lot of faith in what Cole Hudson and Neto can do. I thought Neto looked really, really good in the snaps he took on Saturday. But the interior offensive line has to be better. I was encouraged with the way that otherwise Christian Jones and Kelvin Banks were able to set the edge. I thought Gunnar Helm and JT Sanders were also really solid blocking, especially in the second half. I think the blocking will be fine on Saturday, like this coming Saturday. Some of the, but there's some things that definitely need to get cleaned up along the interior. Wide receiver blocking. I know even on this channel, we've mentioned Adonai Mitchell. Like to see a little bit more from him. Just, I don't know if it's miscommunication, effort, I don't know, but there were definitely some missed blocks from him on Saturday. Defensively, is there anything that you wanted to mention about the...
I did want to add one little last thing on Jaden Blue, and I'll jump right into the defenses. Jaden Blue, the one thing that really surprised all of us was the fact that he was, like you said, the tough running. The running in between, like running into the mass of humanity. He's a smaller guy, there's no doubt about it. He was always seen as like the fast, the twitchy, the guy that can receive, he can do the outside runs. We didn't know if he could do the inside stuff. That's something very positive to see. And like you said, I think he was the best guy. Going over to what you said on defense, like I literally just posted a video just minutes ago. The freshman on the defense. That was probably the most exciting thing to me because the defensive line, I mean, I already knew what we had in the defensive tackles. Like there were some people that were like, I don't know why anybody ever doubted Sweat's effort level. Like there were some people that were doing it on Twitter, and I don't know why they were ever doing it, but I was telling them, hey, like this is a guy that I've seen multiple times when there's a wide receiver that catches a screen pass. T'Vondre Sweat is in on the tackle 30 yards down the field. Like it's like that's what you call effort. And I was watching the Baron Sorrell play I was doing his every play but shortly before the season. And two names just kept popping off was T'Vondre Sweat and Vernon Broughton. Vernon Broughton, number 45. And I was screaming his name as much as I could in the Twitter space and all that stuff that I go into. Vernon Broughton is just there was just something about he's constantly getting pushed. He was probably one of the most slept on defenders this all offseason. And it's nice being able to add these freshmen to what we already have.
Yeah, I'd like that you mentioned Vernon Broughton. And well, I guess I'll say this first. For Jaden Blue, there was something I wrote today that almost reminded me of Bijan when he was running against ULM last year. For Blue, he's able to make people miss in a phone booth. It's just a special talent that short of shiftiness, slipperiness almost in traffic is something you can't coach super easily, especially in a sophomore. And so that's something that I remember seeing and covering during his recruitment, but it was hard to tell because he didn't play his senior year in high school. I think some people might forget that. So he definitely came onto the 40 with fresh legs, but there wasn't a whole lot of tape on him as a seasoned player at Klein Cain. And so, I like that we're mentioning a lot of good stuff about him because I think he deserves a chance.
And to that point about him missing a senior year in high school, Nino said this on tweet, Nino's Corner on Twitter. He goes and he says, he pointed out, hey, Jaden Blue was the top running back as a junior in the state, and not just the state but the nation.
Yep. And
then he was he was 5-star, bona fide, all this certified back. Misses, he goes off the team, doesn't play his senior year, immediately drops down he's bad now. He's back. He didn't play his senior year in high school.
I think he finished outside of the top 100 in the nation in the 24/7 Sports Composite, which was a steep.
That didn't stop them from making Vermont Demas a 5-star.
To your point on the defense, because I wanted to follow up on the whole Vernon Broughton thing, because I did a 3 or 4 hour long deep dive a few weeks ago on Vernon Broughton's tape. I mean, I had watched it live enough to know where he just wasn't there yet physically, it felt like, to play zero tech or even one tech. Playing over the football with someone that hadn't fully evened out his body yet strength-wise and that wasn't quite at the spot he needed to be at with pad level approach, he was getting pushed off the football way too much, especially against Washington. But it seems like, and I know it's Rice, and we're going to face bigger interior offensive lines, including this weekend against Alabama. But Zero Tech, he looked a lot better. I have a lot more confidence in him playing nose this year than I did last year. That was honestly my biggest concern for him, because when he played like 2I or 3 Tech last year, he was really good, especially rushing the passer. He was really athletic. He was a top 50 recruit from a lot of the major recruiting services. It just took him a while to develop. I think he was more of a project, like developmental player than a lot of people thought he was coming out of high school. But I mean, clearly you're high on him. I think that he will be a major contributor this year. We need him to be in that like top 4 or 5 group in the defensive line rotation for sure. For the defense as a whole, I feel very confident about the defensive line heading into the Alabama game. Even with us rotating, I think that we'll be able to hold our own, especially in run defense. The linebackers worry me a little bit in pass defense, not from Jalen Ford, but just from the perspective of depth. We don't have Mo Blackwell back yet. That's going to hurt us a little bit in pass defense at the linebacker position. David Benda had that coverage slip. We ended up being a play out in a crossing pattern out in the flats. Or Tarik, do you remember if that was a crossing pattern or if that was just a play action play out to the flats?
I can comment on that in a second, but
the one that Benda missed.
Yeah,
that was crossing.
Crossing. Okay.
It's like Benda went straight this way, and then the guy went right the other way. I was like, and here we go, boom.
Yeah, and so just from a pass coverage perspective, because I also think Anthony Hill is still very green. I think he's better than a lot of people expected with his coverage ability, but we still haven't seen him do that in live game action yet, and that was not one of his pronounced strengths coming out of high school, at least since I've covered him. And so that worries me a little bit. Secondary, I think they're going to be all buttoned up for the Alabama game. I know they weren't really tested last week, but every time that there was any sort of test, they passed it with flying colors. 2 interceptions, multiple pass breakups, multiple guys doing it. Manny Muhammad and Derek Williams just were animals. Austin Jordan, Jalen Gilbo were both really good. That's not to mention the starters. So I think we're going to be really, really good there. That's kind of my look at the defense, just like at a high level heading into the Alabama game. My main question is, how do y'all think we're going to deal with Jalen Milroe this year? I know that's a complex question, but just from a high level.
You mean this week?
Sorry, yeah, this week.
Well, Nash, obviously you can speak to that, but my guess would be using multiple people to spy him. You can use Jalen Catalon to do that from time to time. You can use Anthony Hill to do it, and perhaps Jalen Ford. Kind of mixing it up. Making him go to a second read. He's really where he did show improvement, as Eric Molina of Inside Texas pointed out, is much better getting to his first read. But the strength of a really good quarterback is, can you get to your second and third? So if you take away the first read, then kind of keep him within the pocket, I think then you make him a much more containable quarterback. I mean, he's going to make some plays. That's just the nature of the game. But if you can keep those to a minimum, if you can keep him from breaking, the 50-yard runs, I think we have a chance. What do you think, Nash? I think
honestly the way to defend Milroe, and I could be completely off base here because I'm not an X's and O's guy just yet, where I know him that well. But I think you could just sit there and almost play a lot of zone without Malik Muhammad showed a lot with his physicality. Mm-hmm. And when you add in a Terrence Brooks and a Watts, who you already know, and I'm sure Holmes is physical. We just haven't seen it yet. He's brand new for us. I think, these guys have shown that they're, and then also you got Gilbo and Barron down there at the nickel corner. These are guys that are very capable they're very athletic and they're very capable tacklers. So I think this is a scenario where you could possibly have them have some cornerbacks in zone situations where they're able to almost act as like a containment versus for a scramble drill. you don't let Milroe get to the edge. You keep him. You basically keep him saying, "Hey, you're gonna have to get through you're gonna have to go through Collins, Sweat, Broughton, or you're passing the ball. Like we're gonna dare you to pass the ball against this defense." And then on the Benda thing, that one Benda play that you mentioned, he actually on that play he talked about it after the game and post game because they asked him about the sack. He was saying, and if you actually watch that play again, after like listening to what he said, it just makes so much sense. You can actually almost see like there's this moment where he's about to go cover the wide receiver, and then this from what he says it also makes me wonder like what his like responsibility truly was in that play. But he talks about how he had a gap and there was nobody blocking in that gap, in his gap that he had, and he said, I just noticed if I hit it and gone, I would have got him. And you could see this moment where he sees the gap, starts to go to it, doesn't just hit it, doesn't go all gas, no brakes, to use a Sark quote. And then he says, you know what, the next play, if I see it, or he said it afterwards, like he was like, if I see that again, I'm going after it. Next play it happened, boom, gets a sack, all is forgiven. So that was one interesting thing that I heard from David Benda as it relates to that one play. Sorry to kind of go backtrack on that.
No, you're good. It is an interesting thought. I did hear a little bit of his media availability post game, but I did not see that specifically. Just from the perspective of like football basics, from what I remember for the weak side backer, you're supposed to carry the flats unless you have outside leverage and you can pass them off to someone else. Depends on the coverage scheme you're playing, but in that situation, you're right. I don't know. Maybe he had a different responsibility there. It
was just his response, the way that he said, like, "Hey, I can't fathom, like a response, like he seems like a very cerebral player, like where he's smart. He can recognize things and pick up on them and then take advantage of it and act on it. I cannot imagine a player that has a responsibility in the pass coverage sitting there saying, well, this hole was opened up and I could have gone for it and I could have got a sack, if I just left my guy wide. I don't know. That's where it was just his answer that kind of made me question the responsibility of the play.
It is interesting. It almost sounds like what you would hear from the players in like the first year under PK, which, for better or for worse, enough. I heard enough from Benda. You know what, Nash, I know you don't know this about us, but we talk about David Benda on this show way too much. We have spent, at this point, probably hours talking about David Benda. So I think it's an interesting point you make. I'll kind of transition to what I was talking about here, where like, I think for Benda, I think against Milroe, he's a really nice backer to have because the way, not only that he can lead hats to the football, but the way he is able to contest space, like against the ball carrier. We don't have another weak side backer that's that good yet. I think Hill will get there, but just his size, his physicality, once he locates the ball, it's over. You saw that. I love that. The way he responded, like I think that was the next play with the sack, and he pretty much was spotless the rest of the game.
He led the team in tackles.
Yeah.
He had by all accounts outside of one play. That was a great game for him.
It was just unfortunate that the one mistake was like the thing that he's been criticized for so much.
Well, it's the same thing. It's just like with the Quinn Ewers deep balls.
Yeah.
It's like people would like to harp on the what wasn't rather than the what was.
Talking to specifically to the whole Milroe game strategy, I think it's interesting from the whole spy perspective, maybe to take a page out of LSU's book in the sense that we could potentially use Anthony Hill in a Harold Perkins sort of role as a spy. Hill is one of the few guys we have that I think has the speed and the pass rushing chops that can keep up with Milroe and get through blocks, get through traffic. I think it could be interesting to have him play in that kind of hybrid same linebacker role on Saturday. We didn't use him a ton in anything special last weekend, so I got to imagine they're saving something special for him this weekend or this coming weekend.
PK is a genius. He's what Batman villain would PK be? He's Mr. Freeze. Let's go with Mr. Freeze.
In a metaphorical way, Two-Face, because the defense is completely
no. He's not. No, and so he's just. You could just tell the guy's a genius. Just how he develops things, how things continue to get better. Also, how he never throws his players under the bus, but he kind of tweaks things into a way. That's why all of his defenses, you look at him, like he has the same kind of ideas and philosophy, but it's always kind of tweaked to what his guys can do. So I'm sure he's been chomping at the bit to make this happen, because his defense played lights out to hold Bryce Young to 20 points.
Yeah.
I assure you, Jalen Milroe is not Bryce Young. Bryce Young is a truly generational player. Jalen Milroe is a good, potentially very good player, and he certainly looks like a bodybuilder. The guy's just has huge arms, but he's not that type of passer.
I'll say PK, man. It's fun doing the defensive side of watching the defense from PK, because it's like this is something that under Tom Herman, the defense is under Tom Herman and Todd Orlando. Like, for somebody that's a little bit uneducated in the not a little bit, it's fairly uneducated in the X's and O's part of the game. It was like when you watch the defensive alignment under PK, it is crystal clear. There's 4 down linemen most of the time, 2 linebackers, and you got your 5 defensive backs. With Tom Herman's defenses, if you were to just randomly take a look at pre-play, it was hard. It was almost hard to figure out what guys played what position. It almost looked, and then as the play developed, it just looked like a jumbled mess almost sometimes. Whereas the PK defenses, dudes are going to their assignments. You can actually, if you were to just sit there, if you want to actually learn defense and X's and O's, and this is part of what I've been doing to try and learn it, is watching the plays and then just writing down where they're going, doing a little bubble if they look like they're going into a zone, man, if they look like they're a man. It's a lot easier to tell that with the PK defense.
That's true. And I don't need to dig into the Tom Herman defenses, but yeah.
All night.
Yeah. But you're right for PK's defense. You're starting to see it now where from every level of the defense, people have learned their job and they're executing at a much higher level. The defensive linemen are much more effectively taking on double teams. The linebackers are able to make more plays, clean up the ball carrier, pressure the court, whatever they're supposed to be doing. The corners are holding their own in man coverage. One of the biggest things. And we have a guy in the back end of the defense, or at nickel, in Jade Barron, that can literally do it all. And so, we got a lot of guys.
Gilbo too.
Yeah, Gilbo. Yeah, Gilbo's really good. I hope he can stay healthy moving forward, because I think he's going to be a really important player the next few years.
I think one guy that we're not talking about enough, Derek Williams. I was really impressed with him when he got in.
Look,
I was like, oh yeah, this is the guy.
Tarik, I don't know if you saw my tweet. I did the Derek. I was going through Anthony Hill. Derek Williams is going to be my next dude that I do for my every snap, and it's the dude is, he's it. He's like that. He's 6'2". Tarik, this is where you really get excited is. And I know you may be looking way too far in the future for me right now, but is imagine him with an off season, getting that weight, that the helpful weight. It's not getting rid of your speed or anything like that, but for a guy that plays safety, that moves as fast as he does, and he is a physical guy. You can tell he's running to the ball every single play, and he's getting there quickly. And it's this is a dude that you can tell wants to thump people.
He's him and Manny Muhammad. We've talked a lot about them on the show, but they're going to be NFL guys, and they're going to
I
be.
so want Manny Muhammad to make an interception in the Alabama game, so Nick Saban can be reminded, see, this is the one guy I didn't get.
Hey, well, Saban got Caleb down, so he's.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
he really wanted Malik.
Oh, hey, if anybody didn't want Malik Muhammad, they need to be fired, canned immediately.
Well, the reason I bring it up is Nick typically if he really wants a DB, it's he's gonna get that recruitment generally.
Yeah. So Nash, I wanted to kind of trace back to something you had mentioned earlier, and then we can kind of just get into our overarching thoughts on the Alabama game and give some early score predictions, things like that. So Jalen Milroe, right? Last season definitely had his ups and downs in the snaps he took. He started the Texas A&M game, I do believe. And so I think that there's something to that to some degree, to play some sort of zone, or maybe some sort of base cover too. But Jalen Milroe last season against zone defense, or at least zone coverage, 30 attempts, 40 dropbacks, 13 completions, 5 turnover-worthy plays, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. That leaves him at a clip of 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, and 3 turnover-worthy plays in almost twice as many attempts against man coverage. So there could be something to that, just looking at the numbers here, from just the perspective of making him throw through our defense, making him find the soft spots in the zone with his arm.
With these defensive backs that we have, I know it was Rice, right? But the way that they were covered, Malik Muhammad, and for those that don't know, Manny, I'm talking about Malik Muhammad. Malik Muhammad, man, you want to talk about being on somebody's hip. Same Derek Williams' coverage was, even a guy like Anthony Hill, like you pointed to, coverage wasn't necessarily his thing out of high school. Granted, it was Rice. There were times where he had a player or two here or there that kind of probably could have done a little bit better. Not probably, could have done a little bit better. But he is a legit, he was doing well in coverage. But when you add in all the other defensive backs, it's a list that's too long to name. They're all very capable of covering in man, and I think going in zone against Jalen Milroe, I don't know. I'm almost happy that he had a really good game before Texas. I want him feeling confident throwing against our defensive backs.
I think it's interesting too, because we're so familiar with Jalen Milroe, because Steve Sarkisian was the one that recruited him to Alabama, and he was committed to Texas before then. And so
just 2 months before.
Yeah.
The irony is the guy that Sark has now was the guy that got Milroe to Alabama, and now Sark is coaching that guy.
Yep.
I'm telling you, irony.
And then somehow the guy that was supposed to be Ewers and Milroe's replacement in the 2021 class, was it? Yeah. Is still in the QB room too, Charles Wright. There's a ton of good things I think we could say about this secondary. Is just it's going to be a ton of fun to watch this year and moving forward too, because a lot of these guys are so young. But we're gonna have Terrence Brooks for another year. I'm assuming Gavin Holmes for another year. Jalen Gilbo, Austin Jordan, Manny Muhammad, and the guys we got coming in, Santana Wilson. If we Kobe Black in the boat, I think JJR. I love him, man. I've covered him 7-on-7 circuit. He's awesome.
Even a guy like BJ Allen, another year with him, another year in the program. He's a guy that could that safety room could really be special.
I think it will be, because Derek Williams is your guy.
He might be the best safety since Kenny Vaccaro.
Yeah,
that's saying a lot. Because we've had some good ones. We've had a Deshaun Elliott, but I just.
Yeah.
Don't forget my boy Earl Thomas.
No,
Yeah.
But Vaccaro came after Earl.
Yeah, he did.
So that's why I'm saying that. But and then you also got guys like Quandre Diggs, but it's just what he displayed everything that you would want.
Yeah.
That you would want to see. There's not much you could have literally asked for out of these freshmen. And he's a guy that has a size, he has a speed. I'm just like Tarik. I'm very high on him, man.
Yeah, rightly so. He's got a ton of talent, and obviously showed. I think he played well last weekend. Let's pick like one or two X factors. I mean, it's always going to be more complicated than that, but one or two X factors that you think could maybe be underrated storylines of the game, or just mainly deciding factors. And then we'll talk about our score predictions. And one thing that we've done for all of our collab shows that we've done since the summer on here is whether you want to talk about the Alabama game or just the season as a whole, recruiting, whatever that be, off the cuff, one or two bold predictions for the Longhorns. I'll start on the X Factors front. I think Quinn Ewers is actually going to be really good this weekend. I know that there's going to be a lot of pressure on him. The Alabama defense is very good, but I mean, people the thing is, it just doesn't feel like it's sunk in yet that he did what you have to do is just a successful, not just game manager, but a successful quarterback has to do on, I think, 90 to 95% of the offensive plays. If he plays well, and I think, hell, all he has to do is maybe connect on one or two deep balls next weekend, I think we could win the game. Just at least he'll play well enough for us to win. So that aside, the interior offensive line, to me, they got to be average. I think they have to be at least average. If they're average, I think the rest of the offense can hold up their end of the bargain. The second thing for me is the linebacker play. I know that they looked really good, but they're going to be tested in multiple ways. Jalen Ford, I am fully confident in. I know he had some hiccups against Alabama last year, but he's just been on fire recently. But it's like the other guys. It's David Benda. It's Anthony Hill. I mean, Jet Bush is probably going to see very significant reps. We might even see like Leon Galafal out there because we're down to Blackwell. So I think the linebackers each have to hold their own. Confident in Ford. I think Benda will play well, but they're going to have a lot of assignments that they have to take care of. Saban, I think, is really going to test them.
I just have so much faith in this defense. I'm not like, they're all X factors to me, but so I'm going to stick with two offensive X factors because I think that's the thing that we're going to need to be able to separate. I think the first X factor is Xavier Worthy. I mean, it was so nice to see him going right back to the half of his yardage was after the catch. He is a literal yak monster. He had multiple multiple catches that probably he had a PI that should have been called. He had a catch that I don't know. Look, I don't know how you overturn a catch that happened. When you need indisputable evidence. Like,
yeah. Okay, we're talking.
Like I don't get that. I'm having a small little brain. Oh no, I know who it was. Keelan Robinson. That's my underrated X factor. And the reason why is because we're going into the motion game. We obviously just did a little vanilla stuff with versus Rice. Got into some scheme stuff, but for the most part was vanilla. We did not see anywhere like the diamond formation type stuff. The stuff that Sark is like really creative with. Keelan Robinson is he's a guy that what he does is he does a great job of being able to put he allows Sark to put defenders in conflict. He has that speed that it's like, hey, if you don't honor this guy, I'm sending him out over here, right? He's going into that space over there. If you don't honor him, the ball's going to go to him, and he's going to run. He's going to run fast, and it's going to be hard to get him. Like you look at the Oklahoma game. Now I get Oklahoma OU. It wasn't that wasn't the best performance to go off of a defense to give to back up stats, but he averaged 11 yards per play versus Oklahoma when he was on the field. And I think that just speaks to like when you motion him out, it creates space and it opens up things for not just him but other people.
The way that he can see a hole, even the smallest of like gaps, the smallest glimpse of daylight, and just explode through it, I think it was probably his biggest gift on offense. And
if it's as long as he doesn't get tackled, like if he gets contacted near where he's holding when he receives the ball, if he gets contacted near there, he's gonna go down. But what I've noticed in his runs is he's if you give him at least 2 yards to generate some momentum, he's going to be able to carry that forward.
Yeah.
And at least get to the line of scrimmage if he's contacting the backfield. He's a little bit slept on in that area, I think.
I think for Keelan, I mean, I missed if you had mentioned that, but the special teams aspect of it too. I mean, and just you can hear it when he's talked about Bama the last year or two that it's a big deal for him to be able to play well against them. And I think especially going back to Bryant Denny, there's going to be a little bit of an extra chip on his shoulder there.
Well, he's also he's the player that's been with Sark the longest. He's been with Steve Sarkisian since 2019.
Yeah.
And he's the only player. He's the only player that can say that. And so in that aspect, I think he might be Stark's. I've said this before, but I think he actually might be Steve Sarkisian's most trusted player. He brought him over. He's the one guy that's stuck, and it's clear there's a relationship at least between him, Jeff Banks, and Sark.
I think that my favorite 2 recruits of the 2023 class were Cedric Baxter and Malik Muhammad. So I think Cedric Baxter running the ball and kind of setting up for play action is going to be very important. I think he's Baxter's the type of back I think that has the best chance of doing something against Alabama due to his size and speed. He's got and the way he can catch out of the backfield, I think is good too. So that's one. I think you need to run the ball. And the other is, I think one of our is the DBs having turnovers that will give us a chance early. I think if we can force some turnovers early, we have a really good chance. Because what I'm hoping to have happen is that Saban has to use multiple QBs, and that won't bode as well for him as it did, say, for Lincoln Riley when he did it twice against us. So there's that.
I do think, what are the chances that Quinn Ewers outplays Jalen Milroe on Saturday?
I think there's a good chance. I think that,
if he doesn't, something went very wrong.
That's what I'm thinking.
Here's the deal: is if Quinn connects on 1 or 2 deep balls, it's people are they're talking about his performance versus Rice in a completely different light. And also this was mentioned in a group chat. I think that this is a game that Steve Sarkisian might actually scheme. This could be a game that misleads people with Quinn Ewers, where Quinn Ewers has a great game because Sark has just schemed everything to the light of day. Yeah. Man, I think if Alabama has to go to a second quarterback outside Jalen Milroe, it is a pure desperation move, and things are looking good for Texas.
Yeah, well, and the thing is for Texas, I think in this game, the defense is so good. You got a shorter game with the new clock rules. It's not the craziest change, but it might result in 1 or 2 fewer possessions for Bama. That could make a huge difference. And so if we get 3 touchdowns, I think that actually puts us in position to potentially win the game, maybe a field goal or 2. I mean, that would have last year. I think our defense is even better. So one more stat I wanted to mention before we get into score predictions here. I've been really high, and obviously I'm really high on Xavier Worthy's route running ability. I do think he's the best short and intermediate route runner in the country. Just from a technical perspective, he's crazy. It's insane what he can do on every route. I mentioned a stat a few times on the site and on social media that he led the Power 5 in points earned per route on basically what are the core 5 or 6 short and intermediate routes last season, which is crazy because you think of all the issues that people cited for him last year. He had a broken hand the second half of the season. He still led in points earned per route. That stat isn't fully calculated for the Power 5 yet, but EPA, expected points added per route, per target, so not per route, but per target for week 1 or out for the Power 5, and he ranks 3rd on short and intermediate routes. So he's continuing to just be one of the most efficient route runners in the short and intermediate game in the nation. So I just think he's awesome in that area of the field. score predictions. So I haven't thought really any at all about mine yet. I just posted the opening odds yesterday, and so that's really the most I've thought about it. And mine will probably change as I do more research this week. That's just tends to be the way that goes. I've got a lot of film study to do the next few days, but my early gut is, unfortunately, I think we end up on the short end of things on Saturday, but I'm going to say we lose 24-21. Tarik, if you want to go next.
I don't want to predict this game just yet.
You can give it a pass until we do the.
Yeah, I need to think about this some more.
Okay.
Boo.
Off the hip one.
But you know what? Out of respect for Nash, I'm going to predict anyway. So I'm going to say, oh boy. Oh, Tarik, what are you doing? Okay. Yeah, I'm just going to say it. As of right now, I think Texas 27, Alabama 20.
That's close to what I have. That's close enough.
All right, Nash, what do you got?
Yeah, see,
Okay,
this is
but I need to put an asterisk. I'm like, assuming Quinn Ewers is not taken out by Dallas Turner.
yes.
Oh, fair. Okay.
No more injuries where our quarterback is looking great and then changes the complete momentum of the game. But
yeah.
For some reason, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the eternal optimist and the Longhorns in me, but I almost wanted to see something versus Rice that would make me like come back to reality. But just those freshmen playing so well, like that, I think the defensive backs are going to be able to. If there's any deficiency that the linebackers have, I think the defensive backs are going to be able to fill that.
Okay.
I'm just going to stick with it. 38-21. We beat them by 17 points. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. A little explanation is needed. One, I think our defense I think this is a great defense. I think the defense is actually improved upon from last year. Alabama, they have like you mentioned it at the top. Bryce Young is that dude. There was literally, if there's one play that describes how good Bryce Young is, it was they were in the red zone. We get pressure at Bryce Young, and he literally just takes off running that way, diagonal. Gets maybe 7 yards, and he's sprinting away, turns around, dart right to Gibbs, and it's like you just how'd you know Gibbs was doing the scramble drill on that? He turns around and he immediately throws the ball. So the dude is such a special player that the fact that they don't have Bryce Young, I think is I don't know if I think people are just looking at it and they're and they should be getting the respect because they're Bama, But I think they just see the Bama name and they're going, there's just no way. There's just no way. And I'm going off of last year. I don't think their offense got better. I think our defense got better. So I think holding them to 21 points isn't out of the realm of possibility. And I think that this offense is just the running backs. I'll be honest, it does scare me a little bit in the interior offensive line. But ultimately, I think guys like Xavier Worthy, Jatavian Sanders, I think these guys are going to be able to, and Keelan Robinson, I think these guys are going to be able to put the defense in enough conflict that it's just we end up winning the game by a good margin.
That's Tarik had a lot of optimistic predictions during our score predictions last year, but that's definitely one of the more optimistic ones. I will say that. I'm all for it if it happens, but I thought I was a little bit optimistic saying that we cover, but no, I do feel good about the game, better than I thought I would. Having a few days for the Rice game to sink in, and really just it's week one. How much does it really matter in the grand scheme of things? But I think that this weekend, will obviously show a lot about where Texas is at heading into Big 12 play, but it's also going to show a lot about Alabama.
Well, I think us having a lackluster game versus Rice in some areas. I know it's crazy to say that about a win, but I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's Rice, and there are areas that we look like we need to improve upon. I think that like for example, the deep ball. I think doing so poorly with these things, it's actually a little bit of a positive instead of we don't have a false confidence in these areas. It's, hey, we got to get this fixed because Bama's coming up right now.
Yeah.
And I think this could be a situation where maybe Bama starts to Texas, they fell off a little bit. They're going to be a little bit easier. And then, like I said, Jalen Milroe, I'm almost happy that he had a really good game passing because I just think feeling confidence in the opposing quarterback and our defensive backs, those aren't two things that are going to go well for opposing teams.
Nope.
That's fair. All right. Let's wrap up with this. So, like I said, we usually do 1, maybe 2 bold predictions for our collab videos. I'll get us started on this. I haven't thought about this at all. And Nash, you picked us to beat Bama, so I don't know where you go from here on this, but
can't get much bolder.
Picked us to beat Bama by 17. I'll say that Jalen Ford has 6 interceptions and 3 fumble recoveries by the end of the season. I know I just said a linebacker has 6 interceptions. I realize what I said, but
that's a lot, man.
I know it's a lot.
Hey, he's capable of it, though. I'll say that.
So I think we could play enough games for him to get there, is my thing. I think, Big 12 championship game, there's an extra one. I think that, potentially if we make the college football playoff, there's an extra one there too. Potentially. So I think we'll have enough games, an extra game or 2 for him. I said it's bold predictions. That's mine. Tarik, do you want to go on yours?
While it doesn't look as promising after week 1, I think that Steve Sarkisian's 1,000-yard back streak will continue. So I'll say that. And I think Xavier Worthy will have 1,000 yards this year as well. So
Okay. 1,000 yards.
We'll have a 3,000+ yard passer and 1,000-yard rusher and 1,000-yard receiver. It's been a long time since that's happened.
It's true. All right, Nash, what you got?
You know what? I'll throw this one out there because I've had a lot of bold predictions here so far, but I think this one actually could end up being one of the more bolder ones. Is T'Vondre Sweat 5 sacks? Because he was close enough last year to getting a good handful of sacks. He didn't get one last year, but I mean, you saw this last game. Honestly, this Rice game was a continuation of last year, where he was just this close to adding a couple. And I mean, he is a legit. He's a legit force, and I think that he's a guy that's going to play himself into a higher round in the NFL draft this year. He's just. I'm so high on T'Vondre Sweat that, yeah, that's a bold prediction.
Yeah, interior defensive lineman. If it's if it's a 3-sack season, that's usually a really good.
3 sacks for an interior D line is a great year. And the NFL, they love you look at Chris Jones. That's why he's such a big deal right now. He's a interior defensive lineman that can go and get sacks after the quarterback. So,
yeah, he's like the model of what
teams. Oh yeah, he's like if God made a perfect defensive tackle.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't even know what the record is for Texas interior defensive line sacks. I'd imagine someone's gotten near that ballpark at some point. I also would imagine that 6 interceptions from a linebacker would be a Big 12 single season record. But Jalen Ford, that's the thing.
They still wouldn't give him Player of the Year.
Well, so here's the deal with Jalen Ford, and I gotta go help my dad here in a second. He's Jalen Ford. A lot of his interceptions happened in the back nine all of his interceptions happened in the back nine of last year. Three of the 4 happened in the back quarter. This is something that I was really interested because he got hot at the end of the season intercepting the ball, and I was wondering, is this something that's going to continue from last year, or because he's a great tackler, right? You know what we got there, but the interceptions, it just interceptions and fumbles, sometimes that's a little bit of luck, but at the same time, skill. It's skill at this point.
It is, and I mean, he's showing good hands. I don't know if he has a single dropped interception is the thing.
He almost palmed that one.
Yeah, that was crazy. And that's the thing, too, is JT Daniels has played against him twice now and still didn't read him in the middle of the field. So you got to know to some degree it's Jalen Ford is.
He's a scary guy for opposing quarterbacks, and he's also a big reason why I think that he's a big part of the 38 to 21 prediction.
Well, and I think especially with Charlie Brewer, Blake Shapen news today, we could potentially be playing a freshman sophomore. I can't remember what Sawyer Robertson is, but to open Big 12 play against Baylor, we could potentially be playing a first year starter there. The strength of quarterback play in the Big 12 this season, I just do not think is going to be very good. So he'll have a chance to. I mean, like you said, he's got 5 in the last 8 games. So 6 is a bold prediction anytime for a linebacker, but we'll see. All right, well, I'll let y'all get up and running here because I think we got a lot of good Alabama content, or a lot of good Alabama game content, good content recap in the Rice game too. Nash, I appreciate you joining us. You definitely bring good perspective to the table. Very different than what we would get, I think, in a really good sense, very different from what we would get, from anyone else that we've done a collab video with before. I think that they provided great content too, but like I said, the way you see the game and, go through numbers and I think pick up trends over time is really interesting. You got anything else you wanted to add before we get out of here? Tarik?
No, man, I just really appreciate y'all for having me on, man.
Yeah, no, we appreciate you joining us. It is, like I said, it is great to get these additional perspectives in here. Really just get more engagement and involvement from just Texas fans in general, just because I've covered multiple teams before in multiple sports since I started writing for Fanside and just in sports media in general back in 2014. And I've never seen this sort of thing, this level of fan engagement within the fan community. So it's a really special thing. Anyway, Tarik, you got anything else you want to add before we get going?
Nope.
All right. Well, Tarik and I and Shane will be back for kind of our preview for the game later this week. And excited for this week because this is a nice little preview of what we're getting before we go to the SEC next year. Anyway, for Andrew Miller, Tarik LaCour from Welcome Headlines, and Nash from Nash Talks Texas. Also, we'll link all the stuff in the description below, social media and all that. Welcome.